LiberalViewer presents.
So as a proud member of the American Civil Liberties Union and a proud supporter of Barack Obama, I was happy to see the ACLU's full-page ad in the New York Times last week calling for Obama to keep his promise to close the prison at Guantanamo Bay and to end violations of the Geneva Convention like waterboarding and other forms of torture. But not everyone was as happy to see the end of the abuses of the Bush administration, as you can see from the introduction to the O'Reilly Factor last Monday here.
Tonight,
I have said repeatedly that I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that.
but where will the alleged 250 terrorists go? The ACLU wants them tried in civilian courts, thereby compromising national security.
Thereby compromising national security? Based on what evidence? Yet O'Reilly, after comically claiming to be objective, goes right ahead with his fact-free argument based on a fallacy that I'll point out after you see this clip.
The Factor's primary job now is to provide fair oversight to the Obama administration. No cheap shots, no free passes. We'll analyze what the new president says and does in a methodical, clear, and non-biased way. In that way, we'll separate ourselves from most of the other media that are either deeply in the tank for Obama or hate him. Now back to last night. Here's what Mr. Obama stated about Guantanamo.
I have said repeatedly that I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that.
But what exactly happens to the 250 alleged terrorists at Gitmo? If they're moved to the USA, the ACLU will immediately file a bunch of lawsuits on their behalf and chaos will ensue. If these men are ever tried in civilian courts, national security intelligence gathering will be incredibly damaged. That, of course, is what the ACLU and other far-left loons want, a dismantling of secret intelligence agencies. Is that what Barack Obama wants? I can't imagine he'd want to put the nation at risk, so where will he put the Gitmo guys?
Of course, O'Reilly's entire argument is based on the fallacy that moving prisoners from Guantanamo will give them access to civilian courts they don't already have, even though the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 last June that they already have access to civilian courts. Though you don't have to take my word for it, you can see O'Reilly reported himself in this clip from last June.
The Supreme Court gives terrorist suspects a big victory, ruling 5-4 that Guantanamo Bay people can challenge their detention in civilian courts.
And O'Reilly's misinformation campaign doesn't stop with Guantanamo, as he goes on to ignore the abusive interrogation methods like waterboarding, approved at the highest levels of the Bush administration, to make the next Fox News fact-free argument that you can see here.
Then there's the interrogation of captured terrorists.
I've said repeatedly that America doesn't torture, and I'm going to make sure that we don't torture. Those are part and parcel of an effort to regain America's moral stature in the world.
Well, that's nice in theory, but what exactly is torture? Keeping a suspect awake, loud music, bad food? Will President Obama eliminate all stressful interrogation methods? If so, that'll end most of the information flow from captured terrorists. Most of these guys are hard cases. They don't give up information easily.
Of course, despite his knowing smile, O'Reilly gives no evidence he actually knows what he's talking about, while those in the military and those with experience in the field know that harsh interrogation techniques are counterproductive, as epitomized by the soft-on-torture opinion expressed in April 2007 by the left-wing loon you can see here.
It's interesting to me that every retired military officer, whether it be Colin Powell or whether it be former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, everybody who's been in war doesn't want to torture people and think that it's the wrong thing to do. And history shows that. We cannot torture people and maintain our moral superiority in the world. And that's a fact.
But when George Tenet says...
I don't care what George Tenet says. I know what's right. I know what's morally right as far as America's behavior is concerned.
But if I may, sir, when George Tenet says we save lives through some of these techniques...
I don't accept it. I don't accept that fundamental thesis because it's never worked throughout history. And so, again, I know this for a fact, and anyone who's had experience with this, I think that's, the people I respect will tell you that if you inflict enough physical pain on someone, they will tell you anything they think you want to know in order to relieve that pain. That's just a fundamental fact. And we've gotten a huge amount of misinformation as well as other information from these techniques.
Now, given that the so-called war on terrorism is really a war of ideas in which even America's image is a matter of national security, I have to ask, even if torture and indefinite detention were useful sources of intelligence, would the information gained really be worth what these methods cost America? And just on a practical level, is there even any actual evidence that detention without charges and torture are effective as tools in fighting terrorism?
YouTube, you decide.